Hey everybody, and welcome to this episode of ECH Debate. Today we're going to be talking about the Colorado Avalanche and what we think their projected protection list is going to end up looking like at the end of this season. If you've looked at our last big Seattle Kraken projected roster video, you'll know that we had put Devon Toews as the pick from Colorado, which I would say at least a couple hundred of you have commented about on that video. So this week we're kind of going to break down the team, but something interesting happened as related to who Colorado might be protecting a couple days ago. So I'm going to throw it over to RJ and he can fill us in on that.
Right. And first, I just want to thank you all for the interest in the projected Kraken roster video. The reaction's been unbelievable. It just passed 20,000 views, and I'm just thrilled that people have taken such an interest in the video and in our channel. And it's been really fun going through and reading all the comments on it, hearing what you all have to say. And far and away, the thing I got the most comments about was my selection of Devon Toews from the Avalanche. And you can kind of distill the comments into, well, the Kraken aren't going to get Devon Toews. He'll be protected, that sort of thing. And as I explained in the video, if Toews is available to the Kraken, if he is left exposed, he would 100% be the pick. But I did mention that I felt, that eventuality is unlikely because it just made so much sense for Erik Johnson to waive his no move clause. But there had been no reports at the time that he intended to do so. So until something was reported there, Toews had to be the pick. Well, of course, shortly after posting the video, we get that much awaited update on the Erik Johnson no move clause situation. In an article from Pierre LeBrun and Ryan Clark in The Athletic on Wednesday, they said, quote, "The expectation is that the front office thinks it will not be an issue to get veteran defenseman Erik Johnson to waive his no move clause." That's good enough for me. So as soon as I read that, I went and updated our projected protection list to show Erik Johnson waiving his no move clause and being exposed, and of course Devon Toews being protected. So now that the news has broken, I can go change it. And that's what I love about this projected roster. As soon as the news breaks, as something officially changes, we make those changes right away. So you always have the most up-to-date picture of what the Kraken roster might look like. So keep checking in. Changes will happen, and they might just be the changes that you're anticipating. So anyway, with Toews out of the picture, that does leave the Kraken with some intriguing options. And I'm interested in your thoughts here, Dylan. So looking at this roster now, who stands out to you as kind of the next man up for the Kraken to take?
Yeah, so there's a couple interesting things. Of course, if Erik Johnson will be available, but I don't think he's, who the Kraken are going to want, much less who they should probably take. There's another defenseman, though. Ryan Graves becomes the next man up, so to speak, if Devon Toews is off the board. Ryan Graves has been a very good defenseman for Colorado this year. They're kind of blessed with that really deep blue line. And, so my gut reaction is just to say, oh, Ryan Graves becomes the pick then. Let's just go with him. He's still a super solid defenseman. Maybe he's not going to be a top pairing defenseman the way Toews would have been, but he's certainly going to be a solid second pairing guy. But looking at their forwards, there are some interesting options there, especially depending on what Colorado decides to do as far as which 7 they're going to protect, assuming they protect 7. One of the names that I want to bring up, because he's someone you and I have talked about, but I don't hear talked about much by really anyone else, is Logan O'Connor. So he's a forward, he's a right wing on the Colorado Avalanche, but he's kind of unique in the sense that he's not scoring a bunch, although he's scoring a decent amount considering the minutes he's playing. But really what makes him stand out above just about anybody else in the entire NHL are his possession numbers. This is a guy... Yeah, go ahead.
Right. His possession numbers are insane. He's number 1 on the team in Fenwick 4 percentage, and he's only got 38% offensive zone starts. So he's starting in the offensive zone less than 40% of the time, and yet he's just dominating possession on an Avs team that already tends to dominate possession. So, Dylan, you've watched him. What's going on here?
I mean, it's kind of as simple as it sounds. Like, this is an Occam's razor sort of thing where, the way possession metrics work is basically how how many more shots is your team taking versus are being taken against you, right? And so for a guy to be starting in his own zone, but his possession numbers to be showing that overwhelmingly all the offensive chances on the ice are on his team rather than the others, it just kind of shows you that, something he's doing is really pushing play out of his own zone and driving it into the other zone. And for Logan O'Connor, it's kind of all the same, all the stuff you'd expect. He uses his body well to push people off the puck to gain possession of the puck. Where then Colorado's a fast team all the way down their lineup, and he he'll make a breakout pass with that. He's really smart defensively, just with his positioning on the ice. He's good at breaking up passes, that sort of thing. But it's all the stuff that you would expect someone to gain possession of the puck and put it into the other zone. He just does it all, and he makes it look fairly easy. So I just thought he should at least be on the Kraken's radar. He doesn't necessarily have to be the pick, but I think he needs to be in consideration for the pick because he's doing something that is extremely valuable in today's NHL, and it's not something that everyone does, even though seemingly it should be.
Right. And I agree. I think, he's someone that the Kraken should be looking at. It's a little difficult because he's only played 22 games, and right now he's kind of out longer term with an injury. Hopefully he'll be back by playoff time when the Kraken can get a little bit better look at him. And yeah, he's probably a more risky option than maybe a safer guy like Ryan Graves, where you know what you're getting. But he's not the only forward that maybe the Kraken should take a look at. And one person that I seen suggested is Jonas Donskoi. What do you think of Jonas Donskoi, Dylan?
He's the perfect kind of middle six winger in that he puts up decent scoring numbers, but he's never going to be a 30 plus goal scorer in this league. I mean, if he was going to be, we would have seen it by now from him. But he does all the little things the right way. He does everything that you want out of like I said, that kind of middle six winger. He's responsible defensively, but he's not he's not a Logan O'Connor as far as driving possession. But he's offensively skilled. He has, an ability to sometimes step up in some pretty big situations. But I don't know. He just feels like someone that the Kraken are going to have a lot of opportunities at. And I feel like when it comes to who they should be taking from Colorado, I think a Ryan Graves or a Logan O'Connor present something that's not going to be as readily available to Seattle the way a Jonas Donskoi type player might be. That being said, you've watched a lot more of Donskoi, having been a Sharks fan. So what do you think about him?
Well, I think the first thing that can stand out to a lot of people is the point totals, and especially with Colorado. I mean, it's impressive. He's got 28 points in 42 games, and was even at an even higher pace earlier in the season. But I do think you hit on something there where he's not a play driver. He's great if you can pair him with someone. He was with McKinnon and Landeskog for a little bit. He's great if you can pair him with some very skilled players, and he has that kind of skill to keep up with them, where not a lot of middle six wingers can do that as effectively as he does. But he's not a play driver, and he's a great luxury to have if you have that abundance of skill on your team like the Avs do. But given what the Kraken roster is going to look like, he's probably not the best fit there.
Yeah. I guess, we've brought him up a couple times. We should probably talk a little bit more about Ryan Graves, especially because if you go and check our updated projected roster for the Seattle Kraken, we do have him right now as the pick. Colorado, like I said earlier, they have so many defensemen, and they can all play tough minutes. They all do well. They all drive possession. But, Ryan Graves stands out to me as far as, you watch some of their top pairings, and you're obviously Devon Toews looks fantastic. We already know all about Cale Makar and all that stuff, right? But you look at Ryan Graves, and he's really kind of one of the guys that they really lean on when they need to in their own zone sometimes. They'll really stick him out there against a top line and let him, kind of work against some of the top forwards in this league, especially in that division. And I think that's going to be something that Seattle is going to need, right? They're not going to have some star center that's going to be able to, just win face-off after face-off in the defensive zone when they need to, and just drive the play up the ice. And I think that that's something that Ryan Graves can bring to Seattle that would be very beneficial for them, certainly early on as they try to build that kind of star power from within the organization.
Absolutely. And he's really worked on his game in the defensive zone. You can kind of see the progression from last season to this season, making sure he has a more active stick, cutting off passing lanes, blocking shots, things like that. It's really a joy to watch him doing all these little things. As fun as it is to watch guys like Cale Makar, Devon Toews, Sam Girard in the offensive zone, watching Avs game, if you look at Ryan Graves in his own zone, that's fun to watch in a whole different way. He's 6'5", 220. He can stand up physically with any forward you can throw at him. And I think that will help the Kraken a lot, especially in their first season.
Yeah. So that's kind of what we were thinking as far as Colorado. I'm going to throw this at you kind of last minute, RJ. Do you think there's any chance that they decide to protect 4 defensemen and kind of pull a Flyers and just say, look, we're going to have to lose a forward anyway, but we're only going to have to lose one? And so they decide to keep Graves and just kind of keep that defensive core together. Do you think there's any chance that that happens?
That's a good question, but I don't think so. I mean, you look at the 4 forwards. You got McKinnon, Rantanen, Landeskog, who I am assuming is going to have to be protected. I don't see him getting away. And Nazem Kadri is the 4, but that leaves guys like Andrei Burakovsky and Val Nichushkin on the outside. And I still think it would be best for them to lose Graves over Burakovsky, even though they're both great hockey players. I don't give it much of a chance.
Yeah, especially because, I mean, we've spent this whole video talking about how great their blue line has been, and most of these guys have been homegrown prospects for them. So obviously they know what they're doing when it comes to scouting defensemen and developing them. So they should be able to replace anyone they lose just fine. But that's our thoughts on Colorado. They're one of the more interesting teams. Obviously, a lot of these, heavy Stanley Cup contending teams are going to have a lot of interesting questions pop up as far as who they're going to be protecting as we get closer and closer to the expansion draft for Seattle. If you like this video, make sure to like it and leave a comment. Let us know what you think. Are you happy we finally made that change away from Devon Toews? Can you breathe easy now? Let us know down below. We always love the engagement, as RJ said earlier. And make sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss, us talking about other teams, us talking about Seattle. We got an upcoming coach video that's going to be pretty exciting as we talk about the coaching options that Seattle might have available to them. Yeah, and we'll see you next time.